is often described as a movement driven by the belief that the smallest unit of governance should have the power to make decisions that directly affect the lives of its citizens. Autonomy is a buzzword that promises a more responsive, accountable, and participatory form of governance where local governments are liberated from the overreaching influence of state and federal tiers of government. So, what will it take to achieve a system where local governments in Nigeria is fully autonomous? Hello and welcome to All About Nigeria. And I am your host, Romelia A. Sangbedu. The dialogue continues in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us on All About Nigeria. On today's edition, we'll be taking a look at local government autonomy. Of course, I'm no longer alone in the studio. I've been joined by two guests, a lady and a gentleman. I will start, of course, the introductions, first of all, as we always do, with a lady. She is Mrs. Yabo Awukoya. She is a lawyer and also a development consultant. Join me as I welcome her to the show. Hello, ma'am, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
And to the gentleman amongst us is Mr. Babatola Akikube. He is an architect and a landscape designer, and he proudly calls himself a patriot. Join us as we welcome him to the show. Good day, sir. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. So it's an interesting topic we have here. Is one, I'm sure, listening to you behind the scenes, I knew you were just ready to dig in. So let's get started. All right, so let me start with you, Mr. Okoya, and this is now taking it from the legal perspective now. For you, as we have it now in the Nigeria's legal structure, a framework that we have now, how does the current legal framework support or hinder the operational autonomy of the local government? And if there is any review you would like, what format would you want those to take?
Yeah. Thank you. Very, very interesting topic, I must say. Autonomy, as we all know it, means a sort of independence, allowing functions to be done as they are supposed to be done. Well, we have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that actually regulates all tiers of government. And so it is from the Constitution that I actually take my foundation in talking about the local government. There really isn't a direct autonomy that is given to the local government per se, because the local governments are actually under the state government in the Constitution. By that, if new local governments are supposed to be created, they have to be created by the State House of Assembly. A lot of the regulations of local government have to be done by the State Houses of Assembly. That's the legislative House of Assembly. So that brings the local governments subsumed under the state authority, because we don't want three separate powers conflicting against each other. So there's that nexus between the state and the local government. But when we talk about three-tier system of governance that we operate under the Nigerian Constitution, we're looking at the local government as the third tier, and it is designed to bring development and democracy down to the grassroots. So it is the duty of a state government to actually entrench what the Constitution envisages for the local government as their functions. So if the state is overbearing and does not allow the local governments to actually carry out their roles, then it is the states that are hindering that particular function of the local government. There is in the Constitution a financial part of local government that the Constitution guarantees. So under the federal allocation system, money is actually earmarked directly for the local government. That's why people talk about financial autonomy, you know that. And I think what we're saying basically is to let the local government have their money so that they can actually do the functions that the Constitution gives them. to do. Do you want me to continue? Can I
Yeah,
continue?
for you to continue, Mr. Kikbe, just a
Yeah.
few minutes here, so we help her wrap up her thoughts. In not so distant past, we had a former president who, out of the frustrations he was obviously getting
Yeah.
from all the complaints and all the inadequacies of various local government, non-developed, underdevelopment in most local government, had to issue an executive order in that regard, insisting that there must be financial autonomy. And you said that there is no direct autonomy in the Constitution. There is a section in the Constitution, I think subsection 7, that directly stipulates that. So how does that come in? It was what the president did an anomaly, or was it a necessity?
Definitely, it wasn't an anomaly at all. It was a creative way of forcing accountability on the system. What the president, that's President Buhari, what he did was to say that since I have the right to give money to the local government constitutionally, I should be able to hand it over to the people who are supposed to have it constitutionally. So all local governments should set up their own accounts, and I'll pay the money directly into those accounts. Nothing wrong. That is pretty constitutional. So it's there is definitely a clear-cut financial, I don't want to call it autonomy, but financial accountability for the local government. They get their money, and their money is supposed to be spent on certain constitutional rules. But when the states, or if the states, take their money from them and then give them whatever it is they give them, then the states are already frustrating their ability to do their constitutional functions. So that's the point I mean. And I would like to tell you some of the constitutional functions, but maybe after.
Yes, we'll come back. We'll come back to that. It does look like you want to take us through the Constitution as the program is about. But let's quickly get into some of the realities we have on ground. We were talking earlier behind the scenes, and you were giving me some examples of what you would find in other climes when it comes to development, especially council to council, borough to boroughs, how, they would want to, some sort of competition, and how people also would, because of certain amenities or infrastructures, want to move from a particular place to another. My question to you will be, what measures would you recommend to address some of the challenges effectively in Nigeria, especially with regards to infrastructural development and also provision of basic amenities as stipulated in the local government law?
Thank you very much. If you consider City Hall Lagos was built by the Lagos City Council, that is an example of how entrenched the local government or the local authority system was over the years. You have the colonial structure through their divisional officers, and you have the local governments. The local governments have been very, very effective, but the unfortunate politicization which we've witnessed in what I call the post-1999 political structure has strangulated a lot of our development. I would be challenged, but I would assure you that a lot of the migration from the hinterland to the cities can be directly related to this dearth of access by the local governments. I did my youth corps in a town called Shaki in Okeogun, which is in Oyo State. And the local government chairman then, this was 34 years ago, had his allocation direct. So if they were building drains, if they were building roads, the money was locally spent by contractors who lived within the area. What you witness today is that that contractor that will build that road would be in the corridors of power in Ibadan or in Lagos, and you'd find out that there is a lack of actual investment in those areas. And whenever it is you have disease epidemiology, it's actually the health department of the local government that does the survey. Oh, there's meningitis, oh, there's cholera. It's not the state government. The state government is too far from it. So the inability of the local government to actually function is harming us. people are only looking at the quantum of the allocation, forgetting that how the divisional officers worked in Ondo, in Ife, in Owo. Those are the boots on the ground. If they were soldiers, then these are the soldiers that you have to actually help prosecute whatever it is that is going on. But that is lacking now. We just look at what we call the Jack account, big sums of money. They would allocate it, 3 local governments, there's roads, but there's so many other things. Then we talk about, you mentioned about the crimes. The quality of education, or the education at certain levels are at the local government, purview, but it's now been taken over by the states, and you have the big superbs, and if we really do an in-depth analysis, asking the people what they want, it's at the local government. We want 2 more primary schools. We want a technical school. People move from different boroughs because of the quality of education, for those who live in England, particularly London, because private schools are very expensive. But the quality of education that some boroughs give their students through the public schools, even in America also, are so high that people move to those. And what happens is that once people start moving, the cost of housing and the cost of living rises in those areas, because it's a push and pull. It's a demand and supply. So you find out that, but here we don't have it. So we don't even the real quality, what I'll call a quality of life index that we should have between local governments, that, properties in Etios are sell for X or Y, but is it really the most livable place compared to K2, Koshafe or Ikeja? So those are the things that, giving the local governments the true financial, physical, and every other means of autonomy, would bring about for the people and help grow our democracy in a better way.
In a better way. All right. I know Mrs. Okoya wants to weigh in here, but I hear my director saying we have to take a break right now. A quick break. When we come back, conversation continues on local government autonomy in Nigeria, and we will be back with more thoughts from our panelists. Stay with us.
Will you come join me and learn of my journey? Alele mama, alele mama, all about Nigeria. Alele mama, mama, alele mama.
Thank you for staying tuned to All About Nigeria. Of course, today's edition is about local government autonomy, and we have been speaking with Mrs. Yabo Awukoya and Mr. Babatola Akikube, both, of course, patriots of this country and who love the nation dearly. More conversations, but we will start now with Mrs. Awukoya. Let's talk about. See, at some point, we see a lot of politics at play, especially when it comes to state government to local government, which of course precipitated the frustrations from the former president, and he had said, no, give them their money and let them to get their developments on their own. How do we move forward legally now, since the Constitution also gives them the power, the local government that is, to be totally on their own? Where do we go from where we are now to where the picture Mr. Kikube painted, which of course some people will say yes is going on in some local governments. There is that rivalry, healthy competition, let's see. But when you close your eyes and you picture it, you want more.
Yeah.
How do we get ourselves there?
Well, if I may say this, the constitution that we actually operate, although a lot of people criticize it, I actually don't, because I think there's a lot of thinking that has actually gone into the constitution. And let me just give you examples. The local government has specific functions, and the constitution also gives the local government the ability to be able to have internally generated revenue. So, apart from the revenue they get from the federal, they actually have various means by which they can generate their own revenue. So if we allow them to function, to do the things that they are supposed to do, and to generate the revenue the way they're supposed to generate it, they will actually be able to do more for development. And I'll give you an example. The local government's functions include cemeteries. You know, they are the ones who are supposed to actually set up cemeteries and manage the cemeteries, and they're supposed to control parks and gardens. You know, meanwhile, if I'm to use the example of Lagos State, you see that Lagos State is the one that does most of the parks and gardens, and meanwhile, that's a local government function. A lot of people laugh at bicycle licenses and stuff like that, but there's a need for us to have statistics of so many things, you know, data about how many people ride bicycles, what is the bicycle population and things. So local government is actually supposed to do such things. They're supposed to collect rates, but the Lagos State government, if I'm using that as a point of reference, has divided the rates into two and taking land use charge, which is for areas that are obviously more highbrow from the local government. So they are left with tenement rates. So they have a lot of things that they can do. Parks and gardens, public toilets, public utilities, radio licenses, and things that will actually get them to generate their revenue. But if they're being, then there's one important function also. The local government are actually supposed to contribute to the state's economic planning. But I doubt if there's any state government that has an economic planning commission that actually talks to the local government of that state, all of them having meetings. I've done a bit of research, I haven't seen that. So we have a constitution that already sets in place quite a lot of beautiful functions that the local government are supposed to be. I mean, if you have public toilets, that's one of the problems we have in Lagos. If you have public toilets, they will pay for it. So it will be self-funding. Then another important point is the pets. Nobody is regulating pets. Meanwhile, that's a function of the local government. So you have all sorts of dogs that are in there. If a rabies outbreak comes out, nobody can trace them. Whereas it's a function, and when I was growing up, I remember that if you had a problem with a dog, you had to go and get a certification that your dog had been, vaccinated against rabies. So a lot of the things that we used to know for local government councils have been almost eradicated, and that is because the state government is not allowing them to function. So
well, some people, some Nigerians in some quarters will describe it, the handpicking of the so-called local government chairman. That's become a norm now in most states. Would that be responsible for
I try not to be political, because I think what I want to do most of the time is just educate people and enlighten people. So I try not to be political. But I always prefer a situation in which we have grassroots leadership. It worries me that the people who even bring themselves out, offer themselves out for election, are handpicked, you may say, or that they develop from a political structure that makes them to be handpicked. But if we had a system that looks at community development associations and people who are already serving the communities, if we have those ones being brought into politics and then they are chosen or selected from amongst those, then maybe we'll have better accountability and better responsibility. I don't know.
You take the word right out of my mouth there. Accountability is the big word. And, sometimes when you want to define it, you come back home, you start to wonder, will the same definition really apply? But however, that definition is what has given birth to the development you described earlier, which we had in Nigeria also before 1999 Constitution and before the Fourth Republic. How can we now begin to retrace our steps to where everyone is accountable, including the local government chairman, who is practically the chief financial officer of his local government, even though he doesn't sign the checks? However, the money is coming and he has to oversee the disbursement and also the levies that come in. Accountability.
Interestingly, I mean, in the absence of the local government, you have the estate associations. Every estate is being administered almost like a local government. Some estates are charging people to develop their properties just for trucks to come in as much as 150,000 every quarter. So the absence of this autonomy has created even a more expensive build environment to live in. The gates that you saw that were brought down recently in various parts of Lagos are this absence of the presence of the local government. People won't build gates and barriers to secure themselves at night if the local government was as effective as the community policing that Lagos State is doing. It's actually a local government thing. The constabularies that were established pre-Nigerian Army were a local authority constabulary. So the accountability, you see, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. All the housing associations with very, very funny names and acronyms are actually mini local governments. And people are paying. So it's a question of, are we ready to work together? Because the dysfunction that we are seeing is being taken advantage by some people, but we're the ones suffering from it. So if I pay tenement rates, I live in Dolphin Estate, I still pay estate dues. So I mean, I pay estate dues, there are other contributions that you do. And you ask yourself, so what is the role of the local government? If we all pull together, we can now decide that, okay, it's just a local government where I live, or Ikeja where Mrs. Aokoya lives. We want to be part of it. We are going to have grandchildren soon. What kind of environment will they live in? What kind of schools will they go in? And it, not to sound elitist, local governments also regulate where people eat. If you drive through Victoria Island, all food is sold from the boot of cars. Now that all the properties that existed along the right of way for the Lagos Calabar Road, I mean, I don't know how many thousands, tens of thousands of people have been displaced. That is the function of the local government. If the local government existed and it was effective, those properties would never have been built because those are right of way land. And I mean, people have invested. Some people have rented houses, just paid rent maybe a week ago, and the properties have come down. So I think it's two hands clapping together. We need to identify that we need strong local governments, and we need local governments with people who have skin in the game. If late Chief Adeyemi Lawson, who developed Agbara Estate, was the town clerk of Lagos City Council, then, I mean, you need people who have, beyond wanting the office and what comes with the office, to leave a legacy. People who can tell you that this is the 5-10 year plan for this local government. As it is, we're just developing as it goes, or it's an organic thing. It may work, it may not work, but so it's challenging. But I believe that with like-minded people, we can definitely turn this thing around.
So, Okoya, it is challenging. However, people are suffering. How do we get the people involved? How do we get them to participate, to ask the questions that are needed and necessary? It's no longer a question of, do you know whom the local government chairman is? Most people do not know. So how then can we move from, I don't know who my local government chairman is, to, I want to see my local government chairman. I want to tell him my road is bad. I want to tell him we need at least a pipe on water. We need a primary health center in my locality. How do we get participatory with?
Usually, these are the areas in which the civil society organizations come in, the NGOs, but the NGOs in Nigeria are after something totally different than development. So I think I would say that with programs like yours that we have on here, we should directly be speaking with the Lagos state government and all the state governments. They should be challenged to convene a sort of local government development commission or a sort of workshop where a lot of people, stakeholders, can come and talk. We need to find out from the local governments themselves, the local government, the chairpersons or chairmen themselves, what they understand that their rules are. Because right now, some of them are building houses, they're building all sorts of things there, and we are clapping for them because we say that look at what this local government person is doing in his own. So they are turning, some of them are turning it into another constituency project, but that's not the function. So we need to convene a sort of forum in which the state governors will be there and the local government chairman and talk about, because they can't be developing without the state knowing what the plans are. Everything has to collaborate with the state development agenda, so it's important that they just have to, we have to keep the conversation going. We have to get them to.
We have to keep the conversation going.
Yes.
Mr. Kikube, the conversation has been ongoing. We cannot stop talking. As you said, it is almost organic the way things are growing at the moment. How do we move it into a systemic one to such that at the end of the day, we know exactly what will happen or what the plans are and know exactly what blueprint to follow?
Thank you. I think, first of all, the people need to be educated on the roles and functions of the local government. Apart from the privatized cemeteries, I'm not sure if in the last 100 years any local government has established a new
New
cemetery.
cemetery, no.
And people keep opening new housing estates. I mean, along the Lekki corridor, where there are tens of thousands of houses. I don't know how many local governments have built schools, vocational centers, and all the functions that make up the local government. So what I think is a checklist of what you live in a certain area. These are the 20 things that the local government should do. We need parks where we live. Even the parking authority is actually a local government function that has been taken over by the state. Control of simple things like street lights. If a street light in Panti on Herbert Macaulay breaks down, they're going to wait for Alausa to fix it. Whereas when Yaba local government existed, the technicians that manned those street lights were just at the local government across there. So I think it's an education thing. It's an openness thing. People must realize that development would come with people not saying exactly the things that you're doing well only. They'll point out the things that you may not be doing and removing a thick skin from feeling very sensitive. But it's a conversation that has started, as you said, and we hope that with openness in government, we can set a 5-10 year plan and hope to start building and climbing these steps to get there. Thank you.
So any last words? Okay, enough about the leaders themselves, even though, yes, they take the bulk of the responsibility. However, the citizens themselves need some sort of awareness and education, which we're trying to provide here. What would you tell them at this point, at every local government where they're domiciled?
They should first of all get to know where their local government is. A lot of us don't have any business doing with local government. In the olden days, we would go there to look for staff because they had a labor employment bureau. But now most people don't even know where they don't know their councillors. They don't know who to report anything to. So like Mr. Akikugwe said, I think education. All estates should be told to actually display their local government councillors and have them on speed dial, sort of. And then we just have to, people like you will just have to do a lot. Bring on you, maybe in your next show or some other time, you bring some local government chairmen here and ask them some of the things we have, play back some of the things we talked about, and let's see whether they themselves even want to change, That's it.
Whether they themselves even want to change.
Yes.
That's some tall order. How do we get the people more involved?
Well, I mean, we had a recent incident in Etiosa, in Ikoyi. There was a road being built, and there's a particular tree that they wanted to fell.
Yeah.
And they galvanized a movement and relocated the tree. And the unfortunate part is that because people don't correlate development as various concentric rings, all they think is, oh, let's do a road, forgetting that the trees that have been planted have
History.
so not only history, they have ecological, sociological, they have so many effects that we take for granted. So we had the chairman of that local government, and I said, well, everybody on this road is standing under the tree. If you cut all the trees, where are you going to stand? So it's there's a lot of education. It's not going to be easy, but the people have to fight for what they want. If you consider all the young people who are jackpine, part of the reason many of them are going abroad is just to live a decent quality of life. Yeah. I live here, my children can walk 2 minutes to a park. I can walk close to a retail experience. There's a cinema. It's quality of life is close to them. So we'll just continue to share what we know, and hopefully people like you can continue to express them. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do not take the responsibility lightly at all. We will keep doing our best. It is a burden of responsibility, but we will gladly carry it out. Thank you so much for being here, Mrs. Yabo Awokoya,
Thank
lawyer,
you.
development consultant. Always a pleasure to have conversations
Thank you,
with
Romelia. Thank you.
Mr. Babatola Akikube, patriotic Nigerian, he's an architect and also a landscape designer. Thank you so much, sir,
Thank you
for
very much.
coming on the show. All right, viewers, that's about what we could take. The dialogue on local government autonomy in Nigeria is an ongoing one, with each debate, policy proposal, and legislative empowerment having the capacity to create development and deepen democracy. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of All About Nigeria. Until next time, I am Romelia, urging you to stay informed and engaged.
Will you come join me?